Most men think attraction is about saying the right things. These two words will prove that wrong. Because the men who naturally draw women in, without trying, without performing, without rehearsing lines, they're not saying more. They're saying something different. Two specific words used at specific moments that trigger something deep in female psychology that most women can't even explain. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what those words are, why they work on a neurological level, and more importantly, you'll see the precise moments to use them so they land the way they're supposed to. But first, let me tell you what these words are not. They're not compliments. They're not pickup lines. They're not affirmations you repeat in the mirror before a date. They're functional words, quiet words, words that most men completely overlook because they sound almost too simple. That's exactly why they work. The psychology behind the words. Before we get to the words themselves, you need to understand one thing about how female attraction actually operates, because without this context, the words won't make sense. Women are not attracted to what a man says he is. They're attracted to what a man reveals himself to be through unguarded moments. Think about it this way. If I walk into a room and announce I'm a confident, secure man, what does that tell you? Nothing. Actually, it tells you the opposite. A man who needs to say that almost certainly isn't. But if I walk into a room, someone challenges me, and I respond without flinching, without over-explaining, without getting defensive, without needing the last word, that tells you everything. Female psychology is wired to read these unguarded signals. Evolutionary biology has a lot to say about why, but here's the short version. Women have historically needed to assess a man's true character quickly beneath the performance layer. So the female brain is extraordinarily good at detecting what isn't said, the pause, the tone, the word chosen in an unscripted moment. This is where our two words live, not in prepared speeches, in the exact moments most men fumble. Word 1, interesting. That's it. One word, 7 letters. And used correctly, it's one of the most quietly powerful things an older man can say. Here's why almost no one uses it right. Most men, when a woman says something unexpected, something that challenges them, contradicts them, or catches them off guard, react in one of two ways. They either over-agree immediately. Oh wow, you're totally right. I never thought of it that way. And just like that, the attraction flatlines. Because what she just witnessed is a man who shapes himself around her reaction instead of having his own center of gravity. Or they push back too hard, they correct her, debate her, need to be right, and now the interaction has tension that feels defensive, not confident. Interesting. That one word does something completely different. It signals that you heard her. It signals that her perspective registered, but it doesn't collapse into her view, and it doesn't fight it either. It holds its own ground while remaining genuinely open. That's the curiosity gap in action. She said something. You didn't give her the predictable response. Now she's wondering what you actually think. The scenario? David is 58. He's been dating again after a long marriage ended, and he's still recalibrating, still catching himself in old habits, old reflexes. He's on a third date with a woman named Claire. Over dinner, she says something he actually disagrees with. Something about how men always need to be in control in relationships. It's a mild provocation. Maybe she's testing. Maybe she genuinely believes it. He doesn't know. Old David would have either nodded along uncomfortably or launched into a gentle defense of himself. Both moves would have subtly communicated the same thing. Her opinion has power over me. Instead, he looks at her, takes a small pause, and says, "Interesting. What makes you think that?" He's not agreeing. He's not debating. He's doing something far more attractive. He's curious. And his curiosity is coming from a stable place, not an anxious one. Claire finds herself explaining her view more. Then she asks what he thinks. He tells her, calmly, without needing her to agree. She doesn't remember what he said that night as much as she remembers how he felt to talk to. Why this works neurologically. The word interesting activates what psychologists call the curiosity loop in both directions. You signal genuine interest, which makes the other person feel seen, but you also withhold your full response, which creates a small but real pull. She now wants to know what's going on behind your eyes. In female psychology specifically, this creates something crucial, unpredictability in a safe package. She can't fully predict you, but she doesn't feel threatened. That combination, Mild unpredictability wrapped in calm is extraordinarily attractive to women, especially at the level of emotional maturity where older men are dating. The word also signals self-possession. A man who is anxious, who needs approval, cannot say interesting and mean it. He's too busy calculating the safest response. Interesting requires inner stillness, and she can feel that stillness before she even processes the word itself. The mistake to avoid: don't use it as a deflection. Don't say interesting and then change the subject. That turns it from a signal of depth into a signal of avoidance. The word only works when it leads somewhere, even if that somewhere is just a genuine question. Interesting. What makes you feel that way? Interesting. I've seen that too, but I've also noticed interesting. I'd push back on that slightly, actually. The word opens a door. You still have to walk through it. Word 2, no. Said calmly, said without apology, said as a complete sentence when the moment calls for it. Not, no, I'm sorry. Not no, but maybe we could. Not a negotiated, hedged, softened version of no that functionally means yes. Just no. Or in context, no, that doesn't work for me. No, I'd rather not. No, but here's what I can do. This is the word most older men have been socially trained to avoid. Somewhere along the way, through marriages, through careers, through trying to keep the peace, many men learn to soften every refusal into a quasi-yes, to be accommodating, to not cause friction. And the result in the dating world is that they project something women can read immediately and respond to at an instinctive level. This man doesn't have a strong center. No, a clean, calm, non-aggressive does the opposite. It tells a woman something that no amount of charm or complimenting can fake. This man knows who he is and what he wants. He's not performing for me. The scenario: Marcus is 61. He's been seeing someone casually for about 6 weeks. Smart woman, engaged, good energy between them, but she has a habit, maybe unconscious, maybe not, of suggesting small changes to his plans, subtly redirecting. Last week, she suggested they go somewhere different than where he'd planned. He said, sure, whatever you prefer. The week before, she arrived late and he said, no worries at all. These aren't catastrophic moments, but they accumulate. And somewhere in that accumulation, she starts to register, without having a word for it, that he bends, that there's no resistance, that she's essentially dating a mirror. This week, he makes a dinner reservation somewhere he genuinely wants to go. She texts, actually, can we do somewhere closer to me? I'm tired. He pauses, thinks, and then types, I already made the reservation. It's a good spot. I think you'll like it. If tonight's tough, we can reschedule, but I'd rather keep the plan. She ends up going. That night, something is slightly different between them. She's more engaged, more curious, asks him more questions about himself than she has in weeks. He didn't do anything dramatic. He just held his own plan without making it a confrontation. Why this works neurologically? The word no, when delivered calmly, without hostility, without a need for the other person's approval of the refusal, activates what psychologists call respect signaling. It's a behavioral cue that communicates self-worth without stating it. Here's the dynamic that plays out in female psychology. When a man cannot say no, a woman's brain, or again, often below conscious awareness, interprets this as low value. Not because she's cold or calculating, but because the nervous system reads the signal. This person's company is freely available regardless of how I treat them. And things that are freely available with no conditions trigger a devaluing response. A calm no recalibrates that instantly. Not because it's withholding, but because it reveals that you have preferences, limits, and a self that exists independent of her approval. That's the psychological mechanism of curiosity gap flipped inward. She wants to know more about a man who doesn't need her to say yes. The mistake to avoid: the word no only works when it's genuinely calm. If it carries frustration, resentment, or a need to prove something, she feels that, and it reads as emotional reactivity, not self-possession. And don't use it performatively. Don't say no just to seem like you have standards. Women with emotional intelligence detect that immediately. The no that attracts has to come from an actual preference, an actual boundary, an actual sense of your own life and time. Authenticity is what makes it land. Without that, it's just posturing. And posturing is the one thing that repels faster than anything else. The thread connecting both words. You may have noticed something. These two words, interesting and no, aren't tricks. They're not tactics. They're expressions of the same internal state. A man who can say interesting without immediately surrendering his perspective is a man with his own center. A man who can say no without apologizing for existing is a man with his own center. That's the real attraction mechanism at work here. Not the words themselves, but what the words reveal. They're windows into something deeper, a settled, secure, non-performing version of masculinity that women, particularly women at this stage of life, who've been through their own experiences, who can read people clearly, find genuinely rare. Most men never get this far because they're still trying to say the right things. These two words work because they come from a man who stopped performing and started being. That's the shift, and it's available to any man willing to make it. Before you go, think about the last time you were in a conversation with a woman, a date, someone you're getting to know, even a woman in your life, and you felt the pull to over-explain, over-agree, or soften something you actually felt. That's the moment these words live in. Drop a comment below with one word, centered, if this hits something real for you. I read every one. And if you want to go deeper on the psychology of what actually creates attraction at this stage of life, the next video covers something most men don't discover until much later than they should have. Don't miss it.